Hello, everybody. We'll get started in a minute. I think we have about half our attendees here so far.
How's your week been so far, Carl?
That's been pretty good. It's not as cold here as as it is where you are.
That's true. I think we'll hit like Celsius, so like at least 16 today, but then we'll go down to like -7 tomorrow.
That's not fun.
That's the Denver. Live in the mountains.
Yeah. No, we were pressure washing on the weekend, so
Yeah, I need to do that on my drive. That was my plan for this weekend. Hyundai has a stupid, overly complex oil filter that's made out of plastic, so they are prone to cracking. So get to clean up my my driveway.
So for everyone that joined last week, we will be getting the video uploaded and sent out. Hopefully by the end of today or tomorrow. There'll also be a link to today's video. There'll be YouTube links, easy to click. So we're still waiting on a few more, but I think we can get started. They can view the video later. So thank you for joining. We were joking. This is two cue balls talk about AI. And so thank you for joining us this week. So last week we talked about what is AI? Why does it matter? This week, taking a step deeper as we talk about how to keep your data secure. And it's not just your data. We'll get into that later on. Upcoming, we have how to prompt smarter, and then how to get some real results out of agents. So today we'll cover a few things, including what's actually at risk, consequences, and what shadow AI is.
Awesome.
So shadow AI, it's not malicious intent. It's usually people just trying to get their work done. I have some numbers I'll share in the next slide here, but it is typically people trying to do their best work and trying to add another tool in order to get their work done as much as possible. So I found some numbers that are kind of interesting from Gartner. 68% of employees are using unauthorized AI. For companies that are 10 to 50 employees, on average, they're using 18 different AI tools. Which
does that include embedded AI, or is that standalone? They're out buying agents and doing things.
Could be ChatGPT, Chat, could be Kimi, could be trying to make their own agents. It's all the above. On engineering and technical teams, that percentage goes up. It's 79%. And 91% of employees say they need AI to stay productive or to feel like they're productive. So AI is already here. It's already being used, whether you're aware of it or not. And so our goal here is to try and help you enable your staff to be able to do the best work that they can. One other thing to add to that, they said that 87% of AI that is used, shadow AI that's used, includes customer data. So that's Gartner's numbers from earlier this year.
Yeah, that's similar to the numbers that we see across deployments, and when we come in and we help companies kind of shift to a more managed or I would say intentional AI policy, right? Not necessarily managed. Managed is probably the wrong word, because what you want to do is give people the flexibility to be productive, like you said, but you want it to be intentional. You want it to be curated. You want people to have a specific experience that drives forward the intent and mission of the company without compromising the company. Data breaches, going back to old cybersecurity statistics, something like 8 out of 10 companies that experience a data breach never recover. Looking at this and thinking about the threat exposure, that's a lot of surface area.
Yeah, IBM said that $412,000 annual direct costs and hidden productivity costs from using unauthorized AI is what they're saying across their client base. And it's not just data. Callan, last week you were telling me it's also people teaching AI how to think like them.
Absolutely. One of the areas that we've seen the highest concentration of of AI deployments is actually with IT teams and security teams, right? So like, and they account for a lot of the shadow AI use that's going on because they are under an immense amount of pressure to deliver, protecting an organization, building out policies, and responding to threats that happen. But the thing about that's very interesting is when we think about what we're using to do those threats, we're using our intellect, our wisdom, and our guidance. And if you've noticed recently, Mythos was released by Claude to a small subset of cybersecurity. Today, 5.4 Cyber was released to a small subset of partners. And why we're seeing these things like skills and these things like cybersecurity and processes propagate within the AI themselves is the fact that people are, even if they're not putting proprietary data in it, they're asking it questions about their process. We're actively making AI better, and we're enriching the largest companies on the planet who don't really have any interest in making sure that your customers and their customers and everyone else is truly safe because they're making too much money.
Yeah. So if you are on a paid subscription, put a little screenshot here, go to your data controls, and you can turn off the ability to improve the model for everybody. Definitely recommend making that change. That's usually only available to the for the paid subscriptions, but a quick little tip there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you turn that off, they still look at anonymized widespread data, right? You have to have a specific agreement, an enterprise agreement with the providers in order to have them not do that large scale feedback because they look at it from a product standpoint and they're legally allowed to. And so that's why this curated managed AI that you're getting it through the API where they're not doing those types of things, but you're not feeling like you're doing that. You get the same experience, but it's in a managed way and in a way that protects your company from accidentally leaking proprietary process, intelligence, or secrets.
So what's actually at risk? No one wants to do governance for the sake of governance, but governance is there to help you protect against confidentiality breaches, regulatory compliance issues, reputational risk, and IP and competitive risk. IBM listed the average cost of an AI data breach to be 4.2 million.
Oh, wow.
And 9 out of 10 free tiers do not, free AI models you can use do not include data encryption.
That's critical. So if you're in the healthcare sectors, the legal sectors, if you're manufacturing, if you're even quoting, right? We saw last August that there was a specific breach where all shared links, even if you are on a paid or an enterprise model, were indexed in Google, right? And so if it's not encrypted and it's shared out to the broader populace, now they have access to it, even though you're paying.
Yeah. Used to be if you're free, you're the product, but now you pay to be the product. So yeah, some steps to reduce the risk. We'll get into the walled garden concept that's coming up. You can do some things to anonymize your data or anonymize the request that you're making, replace the client name with a placeholder, remove dollar amounts, fabricate some of the data points, but you are still training the model how to think like you. And that's not something that will go away unless you are paying the, well, I don't know what a basic enterprise agreement is, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 figures at least.
Typically it's 40 users at 150 per user.
The next slide. So here's the concept of a walled garden. So first step, we're trying to figure out the best way to talk about this, but be selfish with your data. You don't have to share it. And just water the garden where you live. Keep your data to yourself. There's no reason to share it. Kelly, you can probably describe the walled garden better than I can.
Yeah, it started out as a cybersecurity complex, and thank you. I'm sure you do fine, but I appreciate it. It started out as a cybersecurity and a IT kind of idea of the fact that you can do anything you want within this garden, access to all the tools. And as long as you're only reaching out when the drawbridge is open, you're safe in this garden, right? As it's one door in, one door out. It's actually how, like Synthreo, when we were designing our infrastructure, we use a network way where there's literally only one way in and one way out. There's controls across the side to keep, information secure and safe, but it's a lot more free, right? And when you get out into the outbound, you kind of have to think like Link in this shows, if you're a Zelda fan, where it's dangerous out there, take the sword, right? Because the reality is most of these companies, they don't necessarily have your best interest in mind, right? We watch Grok turn into Mecha Hitler and make lots of inappropriate images of random people all over X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it today. Gemini has issues with helping people cheat in education. Claude hallucinates around financial things, and ChatGPT. Please don't ask any medical questions of ChatGPT, because it is an issue. And when you don't have that curative wall that puts its blockers in place and make sure that things are being controlled in a methodized manner, you end up with a nuclear option, as you can see here.
Yeah, so the concept here is we can still bring in the tools, but the data is remaining inside the garden. The data and all the chats are not actually leaving and going back to the model. So
Exactly.
the model is being brought in, but the data doesn't leave to go back to the model.
And very importantly, the moment it gets back in, the models have forgotten it, right? So something that we enable is something called 0-day retention. And you want to make sure any of your AI that you're using has this, because this is how we can stop it from training, even if you check that box. Because the minute a chat ends, all that data goes away, unless it's been flagged. So don't say weird stuff. But the reality is we're able to pull your data back in, keep a copy and a record of that, so you don't lose progress, but you don't give these other offers progress forward.
So yeah, the public tools like Claude and going directly to ChatGPT, I think we've mentioned most of these already. They are training off your data. There's no audit trail, so you can't see who's doing what. Not really much organizational control. In a governed environment, you can't necessarily see what other people are asking, but there are controls around that, and you can give some guidance. Like in the Synthreo world with Threo chat, you can give it your corporate values. So as it's giving suggestions or answers, it's actually guided by your corporate values. It's not just coming from a blank slate.
Yeah, that's critical. I ran yesterday about 800 tests, and these are not like an adversarial. I'm not like a hacker going after it, but across a bunch of different models that had the generic system prompt only. And what you end up seeing is a massive amount of leaning in to what it thinks the user wants, not what the company or the mission desires or demands or needs. And this is actually a big problem that we're seeing across AI deployments right now, where there's a company that we're talking to where the CEO has changed roadmaps and company focuses 4 times in the last 3 quarters, because the AI keeps telling him that it would be easy to do, and you can go do that.
Sure. So data residency and IP protections. Obviously for Europe, they have GDPR and some really strong privacy controls. Canada is looking to model that. They are meeting with the co-authors of GDPR. Quebec already has some strong privacy laws that are looking to be modeled, and Canada will be bringing in at some point their own version of GDPR. So ensuring that you're ready for that is always a good play. Keeping your data where you want it, not allowing it to be visible by other governments, and just generally keeping full control of your data. It's your data, be responsible for it.
Absolutely. And you look at, in absence of, I would say, regulations or frameworks at the federal level, from an AI perspective, what we're seeing is provinces, country states, and states in the United States implementing their own data and AI control practices. And so it's going to be really interesting to, as a business owner, to understand what you have to adhere to and what you don't have to adhere to. So the data residency, the IP protection, and the frameworks around compliance that are being put into place are quite interesting.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of meetings with the Cybersecurity Council of Canada talking about this, and it seems like the bill was dead for a bit, but it's being brought back as part of the border security bill. And so these controls are coming at the federal level. I believe Prime Minister was also talking about some AI data centers in Canada as well. So it's going to come probably when we least expect it.
Yes.
Not a lot of lead up, but it is coming.
Yeah, and that's I believe in that, what was it, the AI Artificial Intelligence Data Act, right, was the act that you guys were working on and through. And what it looks like they're doing is actually, instead of one big act, applying it, to your point, and in more surgical formats, enhancing privacy laws that already exist, no more, and putting binding legal obligations against those. So it's really good to be aware of those. That's where it's nice to have someone like you.
It helps to see what's coming. And then we mentioned this before, having AI that actually reflects your values, and it's not just the generic defaults. I'll show briefly here, kind of a pre-populated demo, but going through this is the Kimi AI, which will be available through Synthreo. I asked it just a simple question: what are my corporate values? And it doesn't know. Some other models I've looked at, it'll actually say, well, based on your previous chats, it seems like you care about integrity, and it kind of starts making its own set, which aren't inherently wrong, but again, it's a best predictive guess. Where if you're looking at the same Kimi here, that is actually based on our corporate values, it knows who we are, and it has all these things built in. And you can start building off that, right? If you want to build a presentation around financials, it makes sure that it takes these into account.
Yep, exactly.
Next one. Yeah, AI policy is something that also is something we can help with. We're looking at ISO 42001, which is a governance, I guess, accreditation you can get. And it is important to at least get an AI policy in place. That's something our business transformation team can help with, ensuring that there is some guidance, at least at the policy level, to allow people to know what the rules are. I think IBM said 12% of organizations have any sort of AI policy right now. So it's pretty new territory. And having taken a look at what's in ISO 42001, we can help you get that written. So if you're interested, you can reach out. Our business transformation team can help with that.
And Paul's testing a way of kind of supercharging that for us. So it's I think I saw Paul on here. So it's very cool.
Great. And yeah, no one likes governance, but it's there to protect the business and protect your. We've talked about the risks earlier. Again, business transformation can help make sure that you are following what's best for your business. It might not be going all the way to getting the ISO 42001 accreditation, but there are probably pieces of it that would be worthwhile. Overall, your staff are trying to do the best that they can. They're very likely using AI, and if you want to enable them to be able to do the best work and still control your data, definitely would recommend giving them the tool that is that walled garden that they can use.
Yeah, and on that note, things like, even though the other governance, I don't know if you guys, I always see acronyms and I say them, but PIPEDA, I don't know if that's if you guys call it PIPEDA, but You know, that still applies to data being processed by AI, and all of these things. We act like AI is an other, that it's out here just kind of as a new thing, but really it's software and it's data like we've always had before. So you have to treat it exactly the same way.
Yeah, good point. So next week, we'll be getting into what we've had a few requests for already. How do we actually use this thing? How do we get good results out of it? I'm sure there's been many times when we've all tried it and it hallucinates or lies to us, and I've had a lot of conversations with people lately. Just how do you start? It can be intimidating. You ask it a couple things, it doesn't give you necessarily great answers, and it's not worth throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's worth having a couple tools in your tool belt. So I'm quite looking forward to this one.
Likewise, that's one of my passions, is the prompt side of things, as you know.
Yes, definitely do. Do we have any questions? I don't know if there's any questions coming through. Don't see any yet.
One come through the chat. Oh no. Share the link.
Yeah, Michelle, if you could share, I guess we have two links for you. One, Michelle, if you could share the link for next week's meeting. I'll make sure that the next couple weeks get sent out to you shortly. And we also have the link for signing up. The sign up form will include, to sign up for Synthreo, will include asking for a CSV of the people you want to sign up. It doesn't have to be for everybody in your organization. It can be for a select few. And it'll also ask for your corporate values and any other information you want to include. That'd be very good to know. Michelle, do you have the sign up link that we can share in chat for next week?
And the security side can be quite intimidating. What I would tell you is, especially if you're using, if you're using the main paid type chats, or your partners are, your employees are, there's a level of safety, right? It's just getting that policy in place and doing the things. Don't feel intimidated. You're not going to break anything, especially if you haven't hooked in your data. One of the last things that we typically do in a rollout is actually connect the data back. If anybody's used something like a cowork or an autonomous agent, right, you get to the point where it can do bad things very quickly without that governance. And so what we want to do is we want to dial it in first, and then we extend it and give it access to data. Because the other thing that is a problem, we'll talk about this next week, is, and we talked about it last week, is this context window issue. When I give power to something and I give data, it can give me correct information from a security perspective in its small subset of data, right? And it doesn't actually take everything into account. How can you segregate individual user access inside the same company? Everybody has an individual session and data will not be cached. That is, yeah, that's by default. Every user in at least Synthreo, some of the other platforms a little less so, and some do, but every single user of Synthreo has their own instance within the tenant within the instance. And so what that means is that any data that is shared laterally, horizontally, actually goes through an authentication methodology, which makes it very secure, and I will say, knock on wood, harder to have any type of overlap.
So would you say, let's say you and I are in the same tenant, I have my conversations, can you ask a question and see what I've been asking?
Never. So as a software, I've been in software for 20 years. I should never use the word never. It's kind of like talking about a shutout and then the goalie is not in a good place, like the Red Wings were near the end of the season. But it's very much very, that walled garden. The entire platform of Synthreo is a walled garden. Every login of Synthreo is also its own walled garden. Now you can share to collaborate and do things, but the actual login itself protects you.
Great. And from an HR perspective, do we need to think about personal use versus corporate use within the employee Synthreo platform?
It's a problem that the issue that we see is that asking personal questions becomes part of the context, right? That's the way memory works with AI, and it can corrupt the answers that it gives you. We haven't seen massive productivity dips, but in similar studies to what Carl mentioned, we've seen that about 27 to 40% of all internal AI use of corporate AI is for personal. And so similar to other policies you have around, not emailing your mechanic from your work email, but if you have an emergency with your babysitter and you're not doing it all the time, it's okay. Like, that type of thing is really, it just should be reasonable, but it is going to affect potentially the output. So what I would say as part of the policy is, delete those sessions, work in an incognito basis, those types of things is the best bet. I think that, from our perspective, as long as it's sub that 27%, it's not really affecting your cost. It's just you want to make sure it doesn't affect your output. We actually have controls in place that in our standard system prompt that will dissuade people from having a delightful experience when they turn personal, and will actually enable people to have a delightful experience when they're working on things from a corporate setting.
Yeah, so it's okay to use it, just make it part of your policy essentially on how it's used.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like email.
Yeah, I think of the way that we roll AI out a lot like email, right? The biggest problem from an HR perspective is actually the fact that if someone thinks that this is private, because this is corporate, they're going to have a bad time potentially, because this is all discoverable. It's all record that could be subpoenaed, which is the same as discoverable, but just saying it a different way. And it could come up in a lot of situations. We've actually had some interesting situations with like HR bots where people have asked interesting and funny questions that they maybe wouldn't to a human. And the thing about it is AI is 50% more likely to give an affirmative or a driving response than a human, where your HR specialist is going to tell someone, no, maybe in a nice way, depending on, I've worked with a bunch of different HR people. Some are nice, some are not, just like everybody else. But, they may tell that person that it's ridiculous that they would come up with that, or they may tell someone, in a very nice way, don't. AI may say, oh, it's really reasonable. And it's 50% more likely than your kind of most capitulatory human to do that. The other thing is when we roll out without controls, things like HR bots or answers engines, which is something that's available through Nucleus, if the proper controls and constraints aren't in there, we've seen, not us personally, but I've seen with the cadre of HR bots, people building them in other automation platforms, an issue where things will happen like they're using the HR bot as their personal therapist or their wellness guide. And that we don't know what the liability of things like that is. So we want to make sure that it is controlled and managed. That's what Nucleus can help with us.
So the last question here, if an employee has a personal paid subscription, can they give access to company data? So I don't believe Synthreo offers personal subscriptions, correct?
We do not. It was a decision we made because we wanted to focus on, delivering the corporate side. It's one we debated heavily, but I'm glad the route that we went. But yeah, there is not a personal subscription, though. Arguably, if a company wanted to make it a benefit, you could either have two logins or potentially do that. It's not that it can't function that way, but it's that it wasn't designed with that in mind.
So if you're asking if someone else has a personal ChatGPT subscription, I mean, technically you can, and that I consider that part of shadow AI and the data leakage.
Yes, that would be a breach or an incident.
That would be a breach, and we definitely recommend against it. But you need to have your policy in place and have people agree to it so that people are aware of that.
Exactly. Any other
I think that wraps it up for questions, and we're at time. So thank you again, Callan, for joining us, and looking forward
Absolutely.
to having the discussion with you again next week.
Very excited. Thank everybody for the active questions, and can't wait to see y'all.
Everybody.